Congratulations, you just got into your first artist alley. Now what? Hi, I'm Macy and I'm the artist and designer behind Mualcaina, a small business focused on kawaii merch. I've ended at 23 events so far. Some of my more well-known shows are Anime Expo, Fanime, and LA Comic Con. Now the following advice mostly applies if you're doing a more local con where driving is the main method of transportation and will not be flying to the convention, but I do keep it into consideration. If you want a specific artist alley video involving flying to conventions, do comment it down below, and if there's enough interest, I may make a video. First, get your inventory ready. As someone who outsources a lot of my production overseas, I like to place orders around 2 to 3 months in advance, or even earlier if my event is closer to the holidays. The worst is if you're anticipating products and they don't arrive until after the convention. Even if your production time is usually less than that, you need to anticipate having to grade the items after, and just enough time in case the products are defective and your menu has to make them again. If you have a lot of product and plan to mail some items to your hotel or the convention, you need to add an extra 2 weeks for the items to arrive there before the event. I understand it's difficult to plan that far in advance, especially if you're just starting out, but it's definitely something that you need to consider as you grow and do bigger events such as Fanime and Anime Expo. Moving on to some legal things, make sure your tax documents and permits are ready. I'm from the US, specifically California, and I'm not so familiar with international documents, and each state will require different permits and different ways of applying for those permits. And just to cover myself, I'm going to tell you now that I am not a tax or financial professional, and this is not legal nor financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research for your specific situation. However, for California, I had to apply for a temporary permit through the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and I have the link down below for your own reference. It honestly takes a few minutes to do, and I would do it as soon as you find out you're accepted to that event. You are only able to file for a temporary permit 90 days before the show, so I would make a note of it on your calendar just so you don't forget. Sometimes a con will require that you have a printed copy with you. That con will let you know ahead of time that you need to show it to staff or submit it, kind of like Fanime or Anime Expo. However, you can also have a digital copy on your phone if you don't have a printer. Just make sure you email it to yourself if your phone dies. Some events do ask that you have a 410D form filled out. I only had to do this for Sugoi Saturday in addition to the temporary permit. The event will let you know if you need to do it. However, usually a temporary permit is enough. I haven't had to fill out this form at any other event besides Sugoi Saturday. Moving on to the next point, build your full table setup. If you're not sure where to even start with your table display, I do have a video up here on how to set up your Artist Alley table display, and I also have some really helpful photo inspos from some of my artist friends. Now, in terms of practicing your table display, I specifically advise this if it is your first con. Heck, I even do this before every single convention just to make sure that I have everything together and I'm not missing anything. I also recommend taking photos of the front and back for reference, and this is also so your helper can help you build it out. As mentioned, it also helps you remember what items you'll need for your display, just so you don't forget anything. And after setting it up, you can just put it away and then place them in your storage bins or suitcase afterwards so you just don't forget anything. After putting together your display, make a packing checklist. Now, packing lists will vary from person to person depending on your needs. However, the best advice I can give is just to create your table setup for the event as mentioned, then put it away before you forget anything. Some examples of items you should list are your money items like a fanny pack or money box, cash, a calculator, and a card reader. I would also recommend having an emergency toolbox with you that includes wipes, tissues, toilet paper because some conventions do run out, hand sanitizer, band-aids, scissors, painkillers, allergy meds, and so on. On the subject of money, do make sure that you have enough cash on you. Now, some artists like to have about $100 to $200 of cash on them, though it really depends on the items you sell. For example, if you have items priced less than $5, you will need a lot of $1 bills because you'll have to give more $1 in change compared to someone whose lowest priced item is $5. Personally, I like to have about 40 to 50 $1 bills, since some people do give me large bills and I need to give change. I noticed that I don't need as much smaller bills when I do food events such as 626 because people do spend their money first on food, then often have exact change when they buy from me after they ate. On the other hand, this isn't the case for me with anime conventions because we are pretty much like the first stop for them, so a lot of people do ask to break large bills. I rarely receive payment in coins, though it happened to me once. I'm not going to say no to that, however, if they want to do that, it has to be exact change because I don't have coins on me. Moving on to your card system, update your point of sale inventory. I would make sure that your POS system has updated prices for inventory and all of your inventory listed. I personally use Square and I try to do this at least a week before the event, just so I'm not stressing during a transaction that I forgot to put a Luffy pin on Square. Next, I would make sure that your display has up-to-date signage. Sometimes I'll adjust the pricing on my products and then I forget to update it on my display. Similarly, I also forget to take off the sold out sticker on products and I don't really see it until someone asks about it during the event. I would save yourself the trouble by double checking that everything is accurate just so it's one less thing to worry about. This is also why I like to have sticky notes on me, because you can write any prices or deals or if something is sold out. My friend Chen gave me these flower-shaped ones and they're a really cute alternative to the typical square sticky note. On the subject of inventory, just make sure to keep stock of how much inventory you're bringing. Now, I'm often asked how much inventory should I bring to an event, and it's also something that I'm still learning. Now, I'm going to give you an answer that I'm pretty sure you don't want to hear because this is something that I didn't want to hear, and it depends. How much of something you should bring will depend on factors such as how big is the con, how many days is it, obviously less days equals less items, what is the main interest of the con's demographic, do they like anime, gaming, Western art, does the event have attendee badges, and so on. Now, some things I learned is that my more surface level anime items such as Studio Ghibli do extremely well at events such as 626 or OC Japan Fair, but they do okay at anime cons. At cons that are about 4 days long and have attendee badges, I learned that I get more lanyard sales because attendees want to get them for their own badges. And if there's a lot of families, I like to bring my gashapon because parents love the option of cheaper pins because they're less likely to buy a $16 pin for their 10-year-old, and kids love playing with the gashapon machine. For your first few cons, I would bring at least 10 of each item or as much as you physically can. And then from there on, you would learn which items are your best sellers that you should bring more of and which ones you may need to bring less stock of. Moving on to the next point, I would study the vendor load-in info. This is so you're not lost the day of and you're wasting precious time trying to find everything. Load-in info is typically sent in around a month prior to the show, and some cons do send it like 1 to 2 weeks in advance, unfortunately. And some important info that you can find are event dates and times, load-in and setup dates and times, address to the loading dock or the vendor parking lot if there is any, badge registration info and where to pick up your badge, do you need electricity or Wi-Fi, and usually not because you'd have to pay for it unless your service is really bad. And this is most commonly emailed as a PDF, however, some cons do list it on their website, or they'll send you a link to a pre-recorded orientation video. With all of that information in mind, I would create an event one-sheet. So if you're not familiar with one-sheets, it typically has all the condensed, important information that you need to know. And it's a great reference if you are stressed out on the day of the event, which I am going to assume that you will be. Now, this is an example of one of my one-sheets for event, and I like to include info such as the event date, the hours, the address, load-in address and hours, where to find parking and how much it may cost, my hotel/flight info, dining options within the vicinity, and a map of Artist Alley and my table location. With all of the info that you need to know, the last thing you want to do is waste time frantically looking through your emails for all of that information when you can just have it all in one place. With this in mind, you should be a little more prepared with your upcoming convention. If you're still stuck on how to set up your Artist Alley space, I share some helpful tips and inspo from artists with successful booths in this table display for beginners video.